Today's session is going to focus on two different areas. One, to give you enough information to explore the career of business analysis as your own IT career option. And secondly, specifically for beginners who we seem to attract a lot, give you an idea about how it's possible to transition and make a career as a business analyst from a beginner's perspective. So we look at what a BA does, how does a daily job look like, what are the core responsibilities, what are the needs, what would make you a good BA, things like that. And from a beginner's perspective, this is one of the best ways for beginners to make it into their IT career. Because if you're planning to become a developer, then you'll need to learn a lot of programming languages and keep up to date with them. And for non-technical folks who have not been exposed to any programming at all, it might be a big barrier for them. And for testers, for example, you still need to gather some SQL, SQL skills where you query the data and then look at the output of the data. So it's kind of technical in that perspective. But for BAs, it's primarily your listening skills, communication skills, so that you're able to explain concepts clearly. And thirdly, it'll be your interaction skills, people skills. Those are the core qualities, which are soft skills. Combined with the right mix of IT knowledge, IT-specific knowledge, you could definitely make a great BA. And we'll talk about how you could endure that path. Now, a couple of quick areas before we get started. We'll send you a copy of this presentation by email if you haven't already downloaded it yet from requirementsync.com/BA/download. And folks here in the classroom have a copy in your packet. So you don't need to write down what you see on screen. You can feel free to take additional notes. And please interrupt to ask questions. I'd like this to be as interactive as possible, so don't feel like you have to wait until you see your question slide. So just pose your questions as we go through the class. And you will find some blue arrows throughout the presentation. So these are takeaways for you so that you can do your research after the class is over. So we encourage you to take a look at these resources indicated by blue arrows throughout the presentation that you can use as an additional reference or a research point after this class. Now let me give you a bit of a background about myself. I'm Srinivas. I'm the CEO and founder of Requirements Inc. And I started my career as a programmer. So after school, I'm from India, so like most people do, I ventured into IT by picking up a couple of computer courses. I do not have computer science degree or a computer science background at all. So I took a couple of computer courses, got into programming. That's how I started my career. And what I missed in that respect was the piece of code that I was writing. I didn't know who the users were. Did they like it? Did they not like it? How much do they appreciate? How much is it helping their business process, as well as how much is it helping their business process, and is there something I could do better to make their life easier? I was missing that piece because I was working in this localized code which was being used by user, but I never spoke to them. I had no idea what could work for them and what could not work for them. And the company that I worked with did not have much of BAs back then. So, it was people who go visit the clients to make a sales pitch. Those are the ones who were telling us requirements. And I thought that is how it is done. So I didn't think we were missing any step or anything like that. So that's the piece I was missing. So I worked there for a bit, and then I moved to the US and pursued my master's in engineering. Again, that was in mechanical engineering. So I have no computer science or IT degree from that perspective either. So once I finished my engineering, I wanted to get back into IT because work-wise, the IT work did appeal to me, but I was curious whether my missing piece of the puzzle can now be met. So what I was exploring is different career options here in the US, and one thing that came to mind was business analysis. It seemed like exactly what I wanted to do. You need some technical background, which I possess by virtue of my past experience, and you get to talk to users, understand the user feedback, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. Now, I wanted to get into a training program and then start my career, but back then, not much of training was available for business analysis as a discipline. It was all about testing or programming, but not specifically for BAs. So using the past experience as a launch pad, I tried to pitch myself as I would make a good business analyst, go ahead and hire me. And I had to do a lot of applications because I didn't have that background. I didn't have that UML or use case, that specific knowledge that people were seeking. So I did some self-education and did tons of applications, and I finally got lucky. And I started my BA career with Kaleida Park, as well as Roswell Park Cancer Institute, which they participated in the Human Genome Project. So in the genetics field, they have a lot of astounding breakthroughs. So when I started with them, I was working with these neurologists and neuroscientists and people up in their league, but when it comes to IT, they had no idea. I was the one who was giving them IT suggestions and how it should work and things like that. So IT-wise, they were zero, but in their own field, they were the top-notch, one of the best, so to speak. So I was involved in some projects which involved data mining and a lot of data crunching. So you would have abundant data that gets generated from their genetic experiments, and they wanted to make sense of that data. There were some software tools available in the market, but their needs were a bit specific. So we had to change the software that they were using a little bit to make it more easier to analyze their specific needs, pattern recognition, and so on. And we also had to help them build their own engines capable of reading through abundant data and then identifying patterns or identifying key elements that could provide them a breakthrough in their research. So that's where I started my career. It was in healthcare mainly because I was in Buffalo. I went to SUNY Buffalo. So I was in Buffalo. It was local. It was a great opportunity for me because it was in a field that I really wanted to get into, but without much background in there. So that way, I got lucky. And then I wanted to move on and try other industries. And when you become a BA, you have two different ways you can approach this. You can either stick to one industry. Let's say I could have been just in healthcare because I was starting there. I already had the knowledge from there, and I could have carried that forward being a specialist BA in healthcare. The other direction I could have chosen is wanted to be more versatile. So that would mean that I wanted to explore different industries, kind of get a sense of what I like more, as well as appear as a diversified and a versatile BA who can handle projects in different streams. And I chose the second option, which is identifying different projects, different realms, and then seeing what appeals to me, as well as appearing as someone who can handle different types of projects, not just healthcare or not just finance or just retail. So I ventured into trying to find BA opportunities in the finance market, and I joined Freddie Mac after that. So that's when I relocated to this area, and I was consulting on a mortgage servicing project for them, which was really enterprise. The scale of projects that I used to do in Buffalo and here was night and day. So it was almost like I was starting over as a BA and understanding the fundamentals from a large corporation, large systems, large user base perspective. So that was a very interesting transition. And it appeared that I was also liking that aspect of it, that finance was another wing for me to target future positions. And eventually, I started an IT consulting company in India, which we continued to build projects for UK and Poland. So we have some projects in-house that we develop and build and sell, primarily in the e-commerce and supply chain industries. And I also started Requirements Inc. around the same time in 2008. So Requirements Inc. we formed mainly to specialize as a training provider in this space because that vacuum was there even a few years ago, 5-6 years ago. There was kind of a vacuum in that space. So we thought, okay, I'm a non-IT person. Let me start this course. Let me start instructing people how to get into IT without IT background, which is where we tried to excel ourselves in. Because you had these other companies that were willing to train you as long as you were already working in an IT space and how to become a BA and bridge the difference and so on. But for someone who is a non-IT person, to teach someone how they can start from their non-IT role and get into IT, that's where our vision was. That's where our specialization came in. And I founded Requirements Inc. in 2005 and 2008 actually. I started training in 2005, but started Requirements Inc. in 2008. And we've been helping people transition their role as a BA from that point onward. I also like to be in the industry, in touch of what's going on there and what's being done and what are the recent breakthroughs in BA field itself, because it's a field that you can learn and equip yourself with a lot of different skill set. And right now, I'm consulting with Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, which is the unison of NASD, National Association of Securities Dealers, who founded NASDAQ, as well as New York Stock Exchange, NYSE. And they unified to form FINRA as the largest regulator in the US. So since then, I've been consulting for FINRA to manage their regulatory system. And what we're developing is a automated computer system which regulates the mortgage industry. So for example, if you were to start as a loan officer, or if you owned a company in the mortgage area, you would have to register yourself with the FINRA system, and the licenses are managed by state regulators from all over the US. So again, that's another element of my career where the user base is as large as I could have imagined, because it's all over the US. Every single person who's practicing mortgage, every single company, branch manager, everyone has to be registered with FINRA. And the system needs to support the different areas that involve regulating that industry. So right from licensing, application, maintaining requirements, education, testing, all that goes in for the mortgage industry. And I was lucky enough to start on this project right from the inception, which means from the planning stage of creating that project until now. So I'm supporting them as a consultant on that system, and it's a lot of fun because it's hard to come across systems or projects which are starting brand new, and you're building it for such a large user base. So that's a very interesting challenge, and to be involved in that right from the beginning, it's quite an interesting path that I've endured there. So any questions before we move forward? Folks on the phone, any questions? You can use the chat window to ask questions. Dave is online to answer your queries, or if anything needs my attention, he's going to let me know. So please use the chat window for your questions, or unmute yourself and speak up, please, anytime. And these are some of my LinkedIn recommendations from people that I've worked with, people who I've trained in the past, just to give you a glimpse of my background. And you can go to linkedin.com/in/S Srinivas. That's again linkedin.com/in/S Srinivas to connect with me on LinkedIn. I would greatly appreciate it. Let me just throw that link here.